Hey everyone, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a selected style future house. Before this video starts, I just want to let you know you can get this project file and the presets and the samples and the MIDI and just everything in the description for just $5 on my Bandcamp. If you want to support me, it's a great way to do it, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. So anyway, this is the thing. I'm just going to start with the synths. So the first layer I have is this Pluck. It's pretty simple. It's just like a little bell sound. It's just a one shot I put in simpler. And this is like one of 3 layers here, and this is something I want to talk about. So the key to these kind of drops I found is a combination of some like live like sounds like this, like kind of like bell, like plucky kind of sounds, and then like more synthesized sounds, which I'll get into in a second, that sort of like beef it up and make it more like digital and electronic and clean. But this is a Pluck sound, and all it is it's just this. Put it in to simpler, gave it a little bit of a fade. I converted it to mono because there's just some weird stuff going on. You can't hear it as much with this Haas effect on here. But yeah, it just made it cleaner. I have a little bit of a reverb on it, which just has a very small, or a very little bit of dry wet, and a very short decay time, just to give it some space. I have the Haas effect on here, which, if you don't know what the Haas effect is, essentially it is, like, what you do is you split the signal into the left and right sides, and in this case I use the left. You delay one of them slightly forward, so like here I did 10 milliseconds. Anywhere between like 10 to 30 or 40 milliseconds should sound pretty good. After that, it just kind of becomes a little bit too like da-doom kind of sound. Like it just becomes. I'll show you. Like you hear what I said. It's kind of like da-doom da-doom like that. It doesn't really have the effect, but here you just get that nice stereo effect. And yeah, basically what you're doing is you're just delaying one of the sides like a little bit forward, so it's playing slightly after the other one, but it's so quick that your brain just hears it as this big stereo image. So yeah, that's that. I have an EQ on there, just cutting some of these sort of frequencies around like 200 hertz that were kind of messy, and boosting some high end. And then I have these 2 reverbs. So these are actually something I want to talk about because people ask me about this a lot in my streams. So these reverbs are doing like the little reverb swoops that you hear at the end of every like 2 bars. That thing. So the way that you do these is basically you get a reverb and you turn the decay time up like a bunch. Like you can honestly just do it all the way. I just turn it up to there. But then what you do is you have to have a part in your MIDI, and I'm going to talk about the MIDI in a second, but you have to have a part in your MIDI, like usually for 1 count, and by 1 count I mean like 1, 2, 3, 4. Usually on the 4 of, like I said, every 2 bars or every 4 bars or something, you can just cut out this little part, which I've done, and then you automate the dry wet like this to just be like this sort of ramp, and then it cuts out right there. And then that's how you get that like kind of thing at the end. And it's a really nice effect that I like, and I really use it a lot. So I wanted to cover how to do it, but it's really simple. All you have to do is just, like I said, this little reverb automation. I do have 2 because with just 1, I'll show you. The effect wasn't quite loud enough. I mean, I guess it's kind of there, but with the second one, it just really adds that little bit of extra. And then after that, I just have it sidechained to the kick. The next Pluck layer is this one, which I made with Wavetable. All it is it's just a little square wave with a filter on it. I have it on the MS2 mode so I can get this drive. If you don't know, there's the clean mode, and then there's these 4, which give you different sort of sounding drives, I believe before the filter, so you can get a nice kind of like beefier sound, I guess. Without the drive, it sounds like this. So, not quite as powerful, not quite as, like, bright and nice, and just general, I liked it a lot more with that. And then after that, all I did was I set the amp envelope like this. It's very short, so it's just a little pluck. I have envelope 2 on the filter, so that's what's making it go down like that. And then envelope 3 is mapped to the pitch, so I'll show you without that real quick. So you can see it's just adding a little bit of a click at the beginning there. It's subtle, but I think it sounds pretty good with it. And then after that, I just have a reverb, and that's the same as that first Pluck, where it's just like a little short one just to give it some air and some space. I have this EQ, which cuts out a lot of the low end because the distortion was kind of creating some nasty stuff in the low end. So I just cut it all out with this kind of curve where it sort of like goes up like a ramp. And then I have a little bit of a boost in the highs as well. I'll show you without that. Yeah, it just sort of brought out some of those higher frequencies that I wanted. I have the same reverb sweeps, so same thing, just a little automation there, and it's 2 of them, and then I have it sidechained to the kick. And then after that, I just have this last layer, which is actually almost identical in processing to the first one, but it's obviously a different sound. It's like this little kind of like plucky guitar kind of thing. Same thing as the first one. I converted it to mono because it was a little bit weird in the stereo field. I have this reverb there. Again, just doing like a little short kind of extra reverb on top. Excuse me, guys. I'm still a little bit sick. I have an EQ boosting up some of the highs just to bring them out, I guess. And then I have the reverb sweeps on there as well. And then a sidechain. So, yeah, really nothing too crazy. It's just a matter of finding, like, usually between, like, 2 and 4 or 5 layers. Anything past that is, like, a little bit too much, I think, usually, unless they're, like, very specialized for what they do. But it's just a matter of finding different sounds that fit together and make one thing as opposed to, like, getting in the way of each other. Like, if you notice with these, I mean, I did do EQing, but actually I did additive EQing, which usually would be bad. Like, I boosted things. I didn't even have, like, what I'm trying to say is I didn't even have to go in and, like, split these up into frequency ranges or anything with EQ, because they just complement each other already by virtue of just how they sound. And yeah, so that's how I did those. Next thing I'll talk about is the bass, which the main bass sounds like this. Ooh. So yeah, all it is it's just this little FM sound I made in Wavetable. Basically it's just a sine wave with some FM. I have the amount up all the way, but it's being modulated. And then the tune is at 80%, so it's not a full octave. Like if I tune it up to 100, that's just a full octave. I believe this is like a fifth or an octave and a fifth or something. I'm not entirely sure because it doesn't say, but I think it sounds good. I have a filter on here, just to give it a little pluck. It just kind of helps it be a little bit more plucked. And then I have the amplitude envelope, looks like this, just is like a little downward curve, but it doesn't go all the way down, because all the way down was a little bit too like short. This gives it a little bit more breathing room, I feel like. I have envelope 2 on the pitch, so you can really hear that with this one. It just gives it that tight, like, clicky transient at the beginning. And then I have envelope 3 on the filter, so that's why it's going like that down. Nothing too crazy, really. It's a pretty simple sound. But after that, I just put on another really short reverb. This one's even shorter than the one that was on the Plucks, just to give it some space and not just have it just be, like, very bland and plain. I have it a bit warmer on here, which really just kind of beefs it up, and it helps a lot with those like low end frequencies, because this sound isn't exactly the strongest in the low end, but when I tried doing like a dedicated sub, it just sounded kind of weird, so I just wanted to get it all out of this patch. So the a bit warmer just beefs everything up and ties it all together, I feel like. And then I have a sidechain to the kick. Really simple there, nothing too crazy. It's just a matter of having like a very powerful kind of pluck bass sound, and you should be fine. I also have this optional bass layer, and the reason why it's optional is because I made it in Serum. I don't think you could really do this in Wavetable or like Operator or any Ableton synth. So I made it in Serum, and it is a pretty interesting sound that I think a lot of you might want to have as a preset. You can just use this preset if you want. But if you don't have Serum, you can still use this project file because this is just really optional. And all it is it's this FM sound I made. Like this kind of sound. Very simple. It's just 2 oscillators. They're both sine waves. One is up 2 octaves and 7 semitones. And what I have is FM from B. I don't have any kind of modulation on it though. It's just literally just on, and that's it. And then I also have, I should note, oscillator B turned up so you can still hear it. Usually when you would do FM in Serum, you would turn the level down, but this actually sounded better, I think, when you turn that level up and let it be in there. So I did that. And then really this sound is made in the effects. So what I did was this little technique that I like to do a lot where you basically make the sound and then I just kind of distorted it like to an extreme degree. So that's the sound after distortion. And then what you do is you use the FX filter to give it like a pluck. So you're essentially just, it's almost as if you were getting this sound just using the oscillators and then doing the pluck with this filter, but this way you can use the distortion, and it just gives it like a more interesting sound than you could get with just two oscillators, I feel like. After that I have a chorus, which is pretty simple. Just kind of gives it a little bit of stereo stuff, I guess, and it sounds nice. I like the way it sounds on this, so I kept it. And then I just have this EQ boosting some of the highs. As far as like modulation goes, it's really nothing too crazy. Like I said, it's just that filter modulation to make it a pluck, and then I have this LFO here, which is set to envelope mode, so it's really just an envelope on the master tuning, so you get that little click in the beginning. Really nothing too crazy there. Again, just like a little optional layer that does sound good if you have it in there, but it's not necessary. And the last thing I want to talk about before I move on to the drums is the MIDI programming. So if you listen to these, you may be able to tell they're not playing the same note. You can't really have these just play the same note. What I have done here is I've actually taken these and I've made very simple chords. They're just 2-note chords. And then the pluck layers are playing the high notes. They're playing the thirds of those chords. And the basses are just playing the root notes. So I'll show you. If I grab these, oh whoops, Control C, not Control X. If I grab these and put them on here, you can see, yeah, so these are just simple major and minor chords. And then what I've done is I've split them up into the two different layers, or several different layers, I guess, but the bass and the plucks playing the thirds. And then that's how you get these. If I just had these, I'll show you. If I just had these all playing the root notes, it wouldn't sound quite as good. It would sound kind of weird. Yeah, so it doesn't quite have that sound. So it's important to do the chords, and the way I usually write those is I'll just do them on like one of the pluck sounds, or sometimes I'll get a piano and like write in the chords, and then what you do is just copy the bass notes and put them on the bass, and then copy the high notes and put them on the plucks, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's pretty simple, but it's definitely an important thing to note about this. So after that, I just have this little reverse vocal as well. Just plays at the end of these bars here. They're just pretty simple. They just play the same notes as, I believe, this. Yeah, okay, so they're just playing the root notes there, so you can hear, if I play it with the bass, you can hear they're the same note, A. Pretty simple there. It was just a nice little element to sort of transition to the next part, I felt like. After that, okay, so the drums are pretty simple as well. They're just like the hi-hats, and then the claps, and the kicks. So for the kicks, I have a layered kick that I made. I took 2 kicks. I took this one, and then I just filtered out the highs, so it's just this low end, like basically below like 100 hertz, or like just above 100 hertz. And then I have this one that I filtered out, so you get just the highs. And yeah, nothing really too crazy there. I just didn't really like the sound of either one of these just on their own, but I did like things about them. So I want to just piece them together and make one kick out of them. Pretty simple. It's just a matter of leveling them out and getting the levels right once you do that little filtering. I have this clap here. Again, pretty simple. Really nothing to it. It's just a nice sounding clap. It's more about sample selection here and getting like really nice, crisp samples than anything else. And then the hi-hat loop. So the way I made this hi-hat loop is actually kind of cool, and definitely something I want to show off. So what I did was I put this into, I put all these different hi-hat samples into a drum rack. Now, usually I wouldn't use drum racks if you know my tutorials or my streams. You know, I don't really like drum racks, but what I do like drum racks for are when you have things that are all sort of like in the same family. Like when you have hi-hats and you just want to make a hi-hat loop. This is a great way to do it because the problem I have with the drum rack basically is it makes it kind of weird to turn up the levels individually of everything, and for mixing purposes, it's kind of hard to work with. But since with hi-hats, you would really have them all around the same level, it doesn't really matter, and you can actually use it pretty effectively to do this. So I have so I have this open hi-hat, and then I have a bunch of these ones, which are just like doing this, and I have this little rim shot as well on all the 16th notes, and then I have a swinger on here, which is also on all the MIDI notes, or on all the MIDI files of the melodic stuff as well. And yeah, nothing really too crazy there. But it's a good way to make your own little hi-hat loops and not just use ones from sample packs. And yeah, that's pretty much that. As far as the effects go, pretty standard stuff. I have these fills. And then I have these little reverse, these little reverse crashes that just go into the fills. It just sounded a little better to me. I have a crash and a little white noise sweep. Pretty simple, just a little low cut and then some reverb and then a side chain. And then I have this as well, which is just this little, wow, that was strange. I have this little effect that plays at the end of every 8 bars. And yeah, and that's just side chain to the kick. So really pretty simple stuff here. The main thing is just about writing the cool drop with the chords and then trying to go in and doing this stuff to it. But the one thing I will say about this is it's very step by step. As long as you follow these steps in the way I've at least somewhat outlined them here, you should be able to make a drop like this. It really isn't too hard as long as you just know what to sort of piece together and what to do. But that's gonna be it for today, guys. Let me know what you think of this video in the description or in the comments. Wow. Make sure to like this video, share the video, subscribe, and get the sample pack in the description if you want to check it out. Thank you so much, everybody, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow for another tutorial.